Hey YouTubers, it's Charlie, and hopefully you've all had a chance to see the Walking Dead finale. I just did a Q&A and tried to answer as many big questions about that as possible, so now we need to talk about Season 5 because they are already releasing news. So what I'm going to do is start with the really big news and then do my top 10 predictions based on that. Also, a lot of you have been asking me what kind of Walking Dead videos I'm going to be doing during the off-season. Since we're transitioning into Game of Thrones, I'm probably going to step it down to about one Walking Dead video a week, at least 3 per month. Be sure to leave me suggestions for what you want to see in those in the comments below. But be sure to subscribe to get everything because dragons are coming this week and it is going to be awesome. So, the really big news right now is that Gareth, Tara, and Rosita have all been up to series regular for Season 5. This tells us, 1, that those characters probably aren't going to die anytime soon, and it means that they might be spending more time at Terminus than expected, as in multiple episodes. I'll talk more about that during predictions, but let's try to answer this really big question first. If Rosita is now a series regular, then why didn't Abraham and Eugene get promoted too? Series regular just means that you'll be in more episodes, get more lines, and obviously you get paid a lot more. I think what's happening is that Abraham and Eugene will be taking a road trip without Rosita, and that'll just occur off-screen for the most part. Now that so many of the survivors are back together, they'll probably just spend most of the first half of the season at least at Terminus specifically. Which actually leads me to predictions, so careful for potential spoilers from the show or the comics if you're not caught up or you don't want to know anything. But number 10, Abraham and Eugene will bolt from the group and head for Alexandria. During my Q&A I talked about cannibals eating the biggest people first, and clearly Abraham and Eugene would be at the top of their list, at least after Tyrese. But their characters just have way too much story left in the comics. Even if the show remixes everything that's supposed to come next, they'd still be a part of it. But because they're not series regulars like Rosita now, having their story literally, travel off screen would be a good way to start throwing to Alexandria. Abraham's whole mission has been to get Eugene to Washington, D.C., and he's got that stubborn military mindset, and he's not going to quit until he accomplishes that goal. So obviously at some point, they're going to have to separate and take off. Speaking of separate, number 9, Carol, Tyrese, and Judith are still going to be on the road in Season 5. There was that lingering shot of powdered milk outside the train car that made everyone wonder if it was being used to feed baby Judith, but after staring at it a third and a fourth time, I think that it's just what they were using to feed the survivors that we saw, Glenn and Maggie's group. Scott Gimple said something really vague on Talking Dead about them being out there somewhere. We already know that Beth's story is going to diverge just a little bit from the survivors for most of the season, and it's also possible that Carol, Tyrese, and Judith could sidestep Terminus altogether. They've already confirmed that there will be more action in Season 5, and wouldn't having a baby right there in the middle of it kill all that tension? Rick would do a complete 180 back to Farmer Rick. So I think they won't appear at Terminus, at least not while shit is going down between the survivors and the cannibals. As much as I would love to see Judith reunited with Rick and Carl, her not being there just spares her from being turned into a hamburger. Number 8, the first half of the season will definitely be at Terminus. Gareth is a series regular now. There would not be a reason to make him one if the survivors were just going to blow right through on their way to Alexandria. So them escaping and defeating the cannibals is just going to cross over several episodes, which I think is great. They tease so much mythology in the 5 real minutes we saw of Terminus. We'll get to learn all about that creepy religion they practice, what the candles are for, and the history of Terminus. They wrote that creepy mantra all over the wall for a reason. Clearly the saviors or someone really bad came there at some point and took advantage of them. So this isn't a prediction, but wouldn't it be crazy if the saviors at some point in the past came to Terminus, took all their food, and that's why the people there turned into cannibals, just because they needed to eat and there was nothing to eat. Negan, in effect, made them cannibals, made them this evil version of the prison. Number 7, the people at Terminus are actually a cannibalistic cult inspired by the Hunters. Here's where we need to distinguish the act of eating human flesh from what actually happens in that weird shrine. If they were just regular cannibals, they would eat people out of extreme necessity. The people at Terminus sitting around that grill seemed like they were very well fed, meaning they probably overeat. Like they eat steak 3 times a day, when they probably could have just survived on a fraction of that. In order to get all that meat, they would have to be killing a lot of extra people. And if you look at the bones on that tarp that Rick runs by, not only are they remains of several people, they look fairly recent. Old bones would have been way more bleached, and there wouldn't have been any blood left on them. By the way, Rick definitely took a long look and saw that they were human bones, even if he didn't say anything about it. The real mystery in my mind isn't so much that they're eating people, it's what is the ritual involved with that act. I'm wondering if they're worshipping something ethereal like the virus, or if they're praying to an actual god. I'm really looking forward to Rick trapping Gareth in a classic evil guy monologue where he explains their whole plan. Does anyone remember that awesome Incredible Syndrome line, "You caught me monologuing"? Number 6, Terminus has no single big bad, but Mary, played by Denise Crosby, and Gareth are co-leaders on a council. Gareth is definitely not a big bad like the governor, but he does have authority. And from the way everyone treated Denise Crosby, it looked like she's like the evil Herschel of their group. I sense a nice dichotomy between the prison and Terminus, as in Terminus is just an evil universe version of the prison. Start trying to find out who everyone's evil twin is. If it were Star Trek, it'd be easy, and they'd all have beards. Speaking of which, let's talk about Denise Crosby. They wouldn't have cast someone like her in a throwaway role. I think it's just more evidence that Terminus is ruled by council. I'd call them the Legion of Doom, but that's really what I think the saviors are going to be. Number 5, one of the survivors has probably accidentally already eaten some people meat. A lot of people actually thought the voices coming from those other containers were Beth, Carol, and Tyrese, but they sounded just a little too different to actually be them. I think they're going to be some red shirt characters that Rick and the survivors will watch get sacrificed in episode 1. Terminus is threatening because of all those guns, so they need to witness someone actually getting eaten for it to become horrifying. Who else noticed how many times Rick and Michonne talked about being hungry and how there's just absolutely no food around? They have to eat at some point, and for the time being, they can only eat what the Terminus people feed them. And what do they have to give but more people meat? Based on how long they've been there, I feel like at least one of those survivors in Glenn and Maggie's group has already accidentally taken a bite of steak without realizing what it was. I'd say Abraham is probably the most likely candidate. He just seems like a steak and potatoes kind of guy. Number 4, they will make it to Alexandria, but not till the end of the season. All Abraham has been talking about since he appeared has been Washington. The train car they were locked in had a giant A on it too, and an NW for Northwest. We all expect them to get there eventually, but based on the casting upgrades that included Gareth, it became pretty clear that Alexandria is way further in the distance. I really think that's a good thing, because once they do get to Alexandria, you get to the Saviors, and it's all just downhill from there. Right now in the comics, there's that all-out war storyline, and I think for them to jump to that before season 6 or 7 is just way too soon. If you are reading the comics, then you can take comfort in something Robert Kirkman said recently. Basically, it was that all the things that you think are coming, it's just the difference is the show remixes things, so you might not get exactly what you think you're gonna get. Things just won't be exactly the way they are in the comics. The best example is the character Gareth. I personally think he's a twist on Chris, the leader of the Hunters. If you are interested in reading the comic and you want to get ready for season 5, I would recommend reading volume 11. It's called Fear the Hunters, and it deals with all things cannibalism. Number 3, Rick is going to say his famous line from the comic books. So rewind in the comic books from the Hunters a little bit, back to issue 24. Rick has this famous line, "We are the Walking Dead." I kept expecting him to say it during the finale. It just felt like every single character was giving him an opportunity, trying to set him up for it. Hopefully they'll twist it just a little bit and turn it into something of a battle cry. You know, he did say that line, "They mess with the wrong people," but I'm holding out hope that he will say that famous comic book line in season 5. Number 2, so this is a big one. Beth's storyline in season 5 will follow a different path from the survivors, and we won't see her as much. Robert Kirkman was fairly non-committal about Beth's fate, and he said we might not even see her during season 5. I think that's a bit misleading. I think we will see her at least towards the end, just not with the survivors. I think it was Jesus that took her, or they'll combine his character with Father Gabriel. Either way, she's on her way to Alexandria. Even if she doesn't get there right away, she'll still spend most of the season apart from the Terminus people. Remember that foreshadowing from the finale? There's a new sheriff in town. It just implies that she'll become a little bit more of a badass. I think that's what all those scenes with Daryl were setting up, in that moment with the spoon. By the time she is reunited with the survivors though, I think she'll be a little bit more like Carol. Maybe a slightly less hardcore version. No matter how awesome Beth gets, I don't think she's going to become the kind of person that would kill a child. And my number 1 prediction, we will not see Negan until well after they make it to Alexandria. Based on Gareth being upgraded to cast regular, I think he's going to be around for a long time and in a lot of episodes, meaning there really isn't room in the narrative for Negan yet. Him showing up is just entirely dependent on when they arrive at Alexandria, and even then it might be another repeat of what happened in this finale. You know, you get a flash of Alexandria for like 5 minutes, and then you get introduced to him, and that's it. And they just leave all the character development for the following season. It's even possible that they could push him all the way to the end of Season 6. But now it's your turn. Let me know, what are your biggest predictions for Season 5? You know, how long are they going to be at Terminus? Is it going to be more than half the season? And if Beth's storyline is going to happen apart from them, is she headed to Alexandria? So, my next Walking Dead bonus video will probably post next week. Be sure to leave me suggestions for what you want to see in that in the comments. I'll be shifting my focus a little bit more to Game of Thrones now because episode 1's going to air on Sunday. So, get really excited for that. I'm probably going to have at least 3, maybe 4 videos for that this week too. So, right now, click here to get my review of the finale, and click here to get my Q&A. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you tonight. High fives.